Welcome to today's edition of an interview with a dream firm leader, in this case, two dream firm leaders. So let me go ahead and introduce to you the CPA duo that's on the precipice of a monumental shift in how their firm sets the bar for strategic advisory services, a partnership so dynamic that there is no accounting problem they cannot solve with their collective expertise. Skeptical at first, but always believers in their abilities to create their dream firm with their uncanny ability to communicate at an incredibly high level. It is time for you to get to know the man who speaks his mind with zero filter, the woman who shows no fear and occasionally blushes at what her partner says, the brilliant minds behind the all-inspiring strategists, Blaine Stanford and Sylvie Cote Hasagawa. It is a pleasure to have both of you with us. How are you doing today?
I'm flushed with, embarrassment. I hate those introductions, but thank you very much.
Right.
You did nail it with the no filter.
Very true. Very, very true.
Awesome. Well, we're off to blushing already to kick things off here. Thank you for that, Blaine. It's a pleasure to have again both of you with us here. And to just kick things off, I know we're going to balance the answers between the two of you, but I'd like to start with Sylvie very quickly here and just get an understanding of the beginning of your accounting career, how you got maybe brought into strategists. Like, give us an understanding of the foundation of your expertise as well as the formation of this partnership that you are now a part of.
I actually did not start out in the CPA way back when. I was in private industry. I was always in accounting. I loved it. I enjoy numbers. It's like putting a puzzle together. So being in private industry, I'd actually met Blaine years ago when our sons were young and doing preschool together. And it came a time where I was looking for a change. He had his own practice at the time. And it was a career change that I was looking to make. I was interested at that point in getting my CPA. So my talents and what I was bringing to the table, and that's for him, a combination of getting people to clients. So that's
Sylvie, just as a heads up, we are still having a little bit of an audio issue. Blaine, I don't know if you were picking up on that as well, but it seemed like that there was maybe a little bit of audio issues. So you might want to just play with your mic settings again real quick to see if we can adjust that. But Blaine, if you could, I imagine that since you guys have been working together for quite a while now, you can probably read not only her thoughts, but essentially what her intentions were. Could you go ahead and summarize for us essentially what Sylvie was looking to get across there?
Probably, her background initially was not, when she joined us, she had not been in public accounting. She was actually with a medical services firm. So, she brought a completely different and unique view into the firm. And really, her background was in the accounting side, where mine had been in the tax side with national accounting firms and local firms.
Okay, perfect. And so essentially we recognized that there was an area of expertise that you wanted to bring into the firm, and discuss a little bit about, again, just the beginning of the firm at large. What was your driving desire, Blaine, to go out on your own? And then also the recognition potentially that you needed talent like Sylvie to be able to help you to reach where you are today.
I think, I say this to everybody. It's like, I had an entrepreneurial, it's straight out of Michael Gerber's E-Myth. I had an entrepreneurial seizure. My wife and I had met working at a national accounting firm here in Tampa. And we just felt like we could provide a better client experience. So we started Strategist back in 1988. Then Sylvie joined us in 2006. She became a shareholder in 2015. And Tina, who I had actually worked with at Laventhal, she'd worked with Karen and I at Laventhal, joined us in 2010, and then she became a shareholder just this past January.
Your origin story isn't unfamiliar to a lot of people on here. I think it's similar, where there was a moment in time where we realized that we could be doing better for our clients. But what was perhaps that specific experience? If you could bring us back to that, was there something was it just a systemic problem with the way that the firms were being run at the time that you said this can be done differently? Was there a particular instance where you just said, wait a minute, I could be in control of this and ultimately make sure that our impact is greater? What was that moment or experience like, Blaine, where you realized
I can remember it like it was yesterday because I spent about 30 hours in the library. I mean, I could visualize sitting there doing research on foreign taxes. And I couldn't even spell foreign taxes, did not want to know how to spell foreign taxes, worked for a national accounting firm that had experts in foreign taxes. And it became, and I knew the clients. So there were two things. One, we would spend enormous amounts of time working on projects that we could easily delegate if the firm was managed better to an expert. And so they would incur less time. I mean, there's a certain amount of, well, you want to grow your staff, but we were constantly doing stuff where we had industry experts that were not being utilized. And that it just became very clear. And the other thing that I noticed is that we would do extremely, complex technical work and design these, plans for clients. And inevitably within 3 years, they would want to start unwinding it. And so it always went back to simplicity. There was a technical, I grew up as a very technical, and I was not very good at it, but did a lot of research. I mean, that was the kind of work we did at those type firms. And, I just came to the conclusion that the clients, there's a technically right answer and a practically right answer. And so we try to focus on the practical solution for our clients and really try to simplify things that sometimes they bring to us or their advisors bring to us.
It's a great point that you bring up here, Blaine, both from your experience with how underutilized certain expertise or skill sets are in large firms, and also the complexity that comes along with some of their solutions, and the fact that they aren't necessarily long-term solutions, and it ends up creating potentially more problems or more complexity in the client's lives down the line. And you clearly are leaning more towards practicality and simplicity and a results-oriented approach for your clients. And I'd like to dig into that, because those are all nice, fanciful, fun words. But when we really get down to brass tacks and we talk about the services that you, Sylvie, and the team over at Strategis are looking to provide, what does that service model look like to you right now?
If you ask us, our ideal clients are trustees, professional service businesses, and their owners. And we do have a fair amount of prior experience in construction or real estate. Being in Florida, that's just a natural. And so we provide automated outsourced accounting, tax, and advisory services, basically from birth to death of a business.
Full life cycle. That's wonderful. Sylvie, I just want to loop you in here. I want to also just do a quick sound check. So Sylvie, very quickly, who's your favorite superhero and why?
Oh gosh, I don't know that I have a superhero favorite.
Okay, well, your sound is working fantastically. So I'm glad that we can loop you back in now. So is there anything that you would add on to from Blaine's responses? And I would even argue, what maybe attracted you to Strategis? And I bring this up because I think a lot of people have a hard time attracting talent. They have a hard time retaining talent. And also the fact that you've become a shareholder, a partner, I'd like to have an understanding a little bit of what that has meant to you, and also what made you decide to say, hey, this is something I want to be a part of. I'm happy to be a part of. And I know that there's an opportunity for me to grow and evolve inside of this firm.
Initially was the fact that I knew Blaine's work from having him do work for clients of mine. So I knew the work level, the expectation to expect, the integrity that came with him and his practice. But once I decided to make the move, all of it, you always hear of tax work where you get the tax return done and he goes out the door and that's the end of that. There's no real client contact. But this was completely different in that we were looking to really provide everything to the client and have those relationships. I mean, we still have client number one that started back in '88, and it's all about building those long-term relationships and truly helping those business entrepreneurs grow their business and being that, one-stop shop for them when it comes to accounting, tax, and payroll, all the things they don't want to get involved with because it's not their expertise. So that was really the factor for me.
Beautiful. And again, I want to compliment both of you for the recognition that the one-stop shop USP or unique value proposition or unique selling proposition, I think is an incredibly powerful one, especially when you have a combined expertise on both the accounting and tax side. I think the way that both Blaine and Sylvie described their value proposition was similar, but a little bit different when it came from each of them. And again, that comes from a lot of experience. It comes from knowing their dream client. It comes from knowing the value that they provide through their services and the results. And the emphasis again on the lifetime value of a client here. What did you just say, from 19 when? 80?
88.
Okay. So your client, you secured that client before I was born. I just want you guys to know that. Okay. Just so that everyone's clear on the scale of time we're talking about right now. That is amazing. And it's humbling to just put that into perspective for me, that you guys have been servicing a client for 3 decades. And
It's not, we probably have 10 clients like that. And then it's not clients, it's client groups. I mean, those clients are probably worth in excess of $500,000 to $1 million of revenue over that time frame.
And
I know
again,
that one client has probably been close to $2 million of revenue over that lifetime.
and this is the long-term thinking that is what people are looking for in this advisory relationship, is that it's not about how can you save me taxes today. It's not about can you just help me with my system that I've had for 10 years. It's about what is it that we can do to make sure that the longevity of your business is going to be semi-permanent. It's going to be here for both you and the generation that comes after you. I just want to, again, emphasize how important that is. And it's no surprise that you guys have had clients like that with the quality of character you both possess. So let's talk a little bit about what your life was like before working with dream firms. I'm gonna swing it to Blaine on this answer right now. Just give us an idea again of kind of what some of the things you guys were going through. Paint that picture of your life prior to your experiences working directly with me and our team.
Well, it was good. But I was, kind of like Einstein, I was looking for the unifying theory of the accounting universe, something that would help me bring everything together. I mean, I'm a vociferous reader, and it's like, if you give me a webinar or, somebody that can tell me how to do it better, I'm going to watch it. And so, I was really, we had brought in Sylvie and Tina, and that really was starting to give me time to come up with how I was going to transition into more of a visionary role from a primary producer. And so I really wanted to create something that would, I wanted to come up with a way to come up with an operating system for a firm, because really what I wanted to do was simplify it down and really spend a tremendous amount of energy during 2021 and then be able to create something that we could just kind of maintain as we move forward.
It's a fantastic answer. And it's not an unfamiliar one in the sense that a lot of owners are looking at how can we go from doers to directors? How can we move from producers to visionaries? And obviously having the right team surrounding and supporting you is mission critical to being able to elevate what it is that you're focusing on, and simultaneously what you choose to focus on to get there. How are you streamlining things? How are you not reinventing the wheel? What is it that is going to allow you to achieve a greater degree of efficiency? 100%. Sylvie, just anything else that you'd add on to Blaine's answer there from your perspective?
It's kind of interesting because I've heard over the years, he needs to simplify, he needs to simplify. One of the things that you don't realize is how difficult it is to do that. I mean, it's one thing to have lists and checklists and going on, but to really hone in on it and simplify it in every single way that you need to run a business really takes time. So we've been fortunate to be able to have Blaine take that time to spend on it to help get us where we want to be.
Yeah, and I think it's the old proverbial expression of working on your business instead of in it, but it's the same problem that entrepreneurs have, is that when you can choose to do anything, what should you focus on? And what is the priority, whether you're working in or working on your business, that's going to allow you to create some meaningful momentum? And that to me is, again, a critical element of what I like to believe we offer here at Dream Firms is that wins stack on top of each other. And I know you guys have been able to generate some amazing wins, which we'll talk about potentially in a little bit here. But again, that's just a compliment to the both of you. So let's get maybe a little bit more specific. Sylvie mentioned kind of having checklists. Blaine referenced maybe being a little bit too much in the practice. But specifically, when we're thinking about a specific problem or hurdle that you were experiencing before working with us, that was really even maybe an indicator that, hey, we need to do something. Maybe not necessarily work with Dream Firms, but we need to make a move that's going to allow us to not go lateral, but it's going to allow us to move forward. What was something that maybe just tipped you off to say, we need to make this move, or we need to make a move to get more progress or to move faster? Sylvie, why don't you kick this answer off, then we'll swing it to Blaine.
Well, like Blaine was saying earlier, in devouring books and webinars and everything, you hear of all these great ideas. But part of our issue, if you would, was really getting those ideas and putting them into movement. And I think part of what Dream Firms has brought is allowed for kind of like the steps to get there and how to get there. And a platform to be able to ask other owners in the same situations, here's a problem we have, how have you fixed it? And that input is hugely helpful.
Agreed. And I like to say that there's no shortage of information in the information age, but at a certain point, it becomes about wisdom and practical experience and making sure that we're not just drinking from a fire hose, because there's no shortage of just like, information overwhelm. It's about practical implementation. Blaine, anything else you'd tack on to Sylvie's answer there?
Well, that's exactly how I felt. I mean, it was, there were 2 or 3 things I would say. One is that I had, for my entire career, I always had 20 years. When I looked out in the future, I had this 20-year kind of rolling scenario. And then all of a sudden one day I woke up and I thought, I had clients that were dying that might not make it another 20 years. And so that really shortened my window. And I also, in the simplification process, my concern was, God bless us all, I hope we all live, but the concern about having a key player go down or get sick or something, it's like we couldn't replace somebody that had been here 10 years. And so it really became about simplifying, taking all of this stuff that was coming at us. It was like going through tax season, except with, how to run a firm, and really try to come up with take what's in Traction, take what's in Dream Firms, take some of these other best practices. And I know some people think of best practices as just, maybe not, we're looking for the best practices, really great things, and how we, I'm a great thief when it comes to plagiarism. I can't create stuff, but if you show me a bunch of really cool stuff, I can cobble it together and use it. And so that was really, and the main thing that brought us to you is just the idea, because my biggest weakness has always been, how to create a repeatable sales funnel. And that was kind of the hook that got me in the door. And then I really started to realize that, you have a unique ability well beyond your years of being able to take what I've got in my head and really focus on what needs to be worked on right now.
Well, I thank you for the compliment. And I also, I want to just pull something for everyone listening from what Blaine just shared there, is that, and what Sylvie said earlier as well, is that simplicity is not necessarily an easy thing to achieve. It takes a lot of focus and an understanding of, well, what is it that we should be simplifying, and what happens when we have our legacy clients that go down, go out of business, whatever the case may be. What happens when we have a franchise player on our team, a really high quality team member, transition to a new opportunity? Those can be some pretty large upheavals. But if we have simplicity in our processes for hiring, training, our sales funnel, the way we attract new clients, it offsets the turbulence or the chaos that can come from these large upheavals that are going to happen. There is no perfect business, there is no perfect process, but there are best practices to be able to figure out, well, where should we be turning, or what should we be flipping on, or what should we be flipping off? And as soon as you understand, I would say, the process of making those decisions, everything gets a lot easier. And again, I just wanted to emphasize that because I think that could have been something that would have been hard to pull out from those answers for everyone listening, but it is certainly worthwhile to hear. So clearly you've indicated a couple of times here, Blaine, that you're willing to look at what's working and imitate it. As they say, imitation's the finest form of flattery. So have you used any other programs specifically to help with growing your practice?
Yeah, I mean, we're in two other coaching programs right now. Coaching / best practice relationships. But, you know, as I said, I've got this very short runway, and I really, you know, my goal was to force everything down into one theory for us. And, you know, I know a lot of people join dream firms to increase billings or the number of clients. And really our goal was, you know, for me, my primary goal was to evaluate our current client relationships and the work that we do for them, and to strategically eliminate the relationships that do not fall within our ideal client scope. And so, you know, 2020 and 2021, we were very, you know, when COVID hit, we thought we might go down in billings by 30%. And instead in 2020, we were up by 21%. So we were very workload stressed during that time. And then when you add to that, the idea that we were transitioning our entire workforce from working at their desks to working remotely in basically a 5 to 7 day period, you know, really our team has done a remarkable, admirable job surviving and thriving in this environment. So our real goal right now is to really narrow our client focus. And as I've said over and over, simplify, simplify, simplify. Because the deal is, you know, the biggest challenge for us, I think, is that we can provide, I mean, not to say, oh, we're great, but, you know, really any small business with the experience level we have and the players we have, any small business that walks in, we can solve their problems. But the question is, should we? And 4 out of 5 clients that we have an opportunity with, we refer to another, you know, relationship that we have with another firm because they're not in our wheelhouse. And it's painful. I mean, we just did that a couple of days ago with a large client, you know, $20 million client.
You know, Blaine, I think people hear that, the idea that someone would be passing on a $20 million client, and they go, well, think about the size of the monthly fees that they'd be paying to you. Think about all the things that would come along with that relationship. And again, I keep saying it, but I want to compliment you because that's a hard decision that I know isn't made lightly, but is made with a specific intent and purpose. And you can't necessarily make that decision unless you understand what that intent and purpose is. And to your point earlier, you know, I was going to ask you, hey, well, why did you decide to really join dream firms? But you gave the perfect answer already, which is we needed to understand who we're targeting, understand what our profitability looks like on our existing client base before we even get into a growth and acquisition mode. And you're already up 20% where you thought you'd be down 30% with all the, again, chaos and upheaval in the marketplace due to things largely outside of our controls, entirely outside of our controls with COVID. So again, it's such a fantastic answer, but Sylvie, anything that you'd add on to what Blaine just shared there?
I think our most difficult role right now is keeping out, like you said, we did turn down this client because we knew they were not a good fit. We do things a certain way, they did not, and it was going to wreak havoc with our staff. And we like our staff to be happy. We want to enjoy the work that we're doing. That, you know, we enjoy working together, so we want to make sure that we're making the correct, you know, client choices when we let them in the door.
If I may be so bold, because again, people hear this turning away a $20 million client and they go, but what would have tipped you off? What can you give me 1 or 2 specific examples? Was it making too many demands on the front end? No, we use this system, we won't migrate. Like, what was it? Just like a personality clash? What told you, oh no, we can't, this would be a bad thing for us to say yes to?
It was extremely simple. I mean, the sad thing was, this is probably our, you know, probably in our top 5 referral sources, the attorney that brought this to us, we probably do a couple $100,000 worth of work for his clients. And this was, we could have solved these problems. But when I asked him, the guy's probably worth, at least $20 million, all real estate. And I said, well, do you guys use QuickBooks? How do you do it? It's like, and I said, he goes, no, we're not that sophisticated. And I said, oh, well, Excel spreadsheets, that's fine. We can help you move that up. And he goes, no, we do everything on paper. And, he was in his late 70s. His bookkeeper was 70s to 80s. She did his tax return. And it's like, she doesn't know, we don't use computers. And I was just like, I have a chair here I'd like you to sit in. Whoosh, out into the pond.
So for those unfamiliar, Blaine has an infamous ejection seat where he says, sit here, and then boop, he hits just sort of like James Bond.
The James Bond ejection seat.
And that's clearly an appropriate use. And again, look, to his point, these problems are solvable, but the question is at what expense are we willing to take to solve these problems? And what is the likelihood that the client is going to agree, go along, be happy with the way in which we would like to solve these problems? And if the answers to those questions are even sort of kind of ejection seat, get them out, let's move on to the next thing. And this is the power of the word no, is that now we've freed up mental bandwidth and capacity to go and focus on the people who are a good fit, who are ready to move forward, who are ready to trust our guidance, who are at a certain level of technological adaptation and are at least willing to adapt that technology more readily. Really appreciate the answer there. I think most people would have been like, well, maybe we should wait on this. But again, those large numbers are very appealing. So let's jump to the beginning of our relationship here, because I think a lot of people are hesitant when they're getting ready to start something new, because it's like, okay, there's a commitment, there's these things that I need to consider. And once I get in, I don't know what it's like to actually get started. So straight from a true source here, and we'll start with Sylvie. What was it like getting rolling with Dream Firms when you first started with us?
The nice thing about it was we kind of got a taste of it because I had attended a class you were teaching, and then there was like a 7-day trial, if you would, kind of get your feet wet, which really gave a good insight to here's what you can expect. And the fact that everything is nicely laid out. It's not just here's the materials and good luck. There is a format to it, and you do stress, hey, it's like this for a reason. Make sure and do your homework and then move on to the next. And maybe not everything is for everybody, depending on what your firm needs, but it does cover a lot. And the fact that the materials are always there to go back to, because I've gone back and rewatched things. I know Blaine has as well. Copious notes and questions and whatnot. And also the group aspect where you do get to ask questions, and while your input is, extremely valuable, you also have the input of the other owners. That's extremely helpful.
Fantastic. Blaine, anything you tack onto that?
I can still remember doing this because it's like, okay, I think when we first met, I was like, yeah, we're absolutely not doing this. Sylvia and I had already decided we're not going to do this. And then we talked, and you said a couple of sentences, and it's like, we're doing this. And it was, because I kind of said, look, because I already had a big list of these are the major things that I want to accomplish in the next, between now and the end of tax season. And I think we were probably somewhere in November. Mm-hmm. And you said, well, what would it be worth to you if you could be where you want to be in June, in December? And I was like, holy. So I said, okay, we're doing it. Let's go. And then, so I love self-study. So for me, I love the step-by-step process. I devoured the videos. We would get on the calls with people and they'd be like, well, yeah, I've gotten through the first. I'm like, I spent 10 hours, probably more like 14 hours, Saturday and Sunday, the first weekend. And I was like in module 4, And so you have the little roadmap, and I was like, well, what the hell is everybody's problem? I mean, it's like, why aren't you here? It's like, I've only been in this 2 days. So, so I like the fact that I could go back. I mean, I would go through and listen to it, and then I would go through and take, stop it, start it, take notes, filled a journal full of stuff that I've got little Post-its on, I go back to all the time. And now it's like, well, crap, I didn't do half the stuff I was supposed to do. I need to go back and start over and go back through the stuff again. So, but there was just stuff you could immediately, even with all those programs we've been through. And I mean, we have 10 plus OneNote manuals that are hyperlinked with documents, with checklists. I mean, I don't know of any other local firm that has the systems in place that we do. Because I wrote the tax manual for a national accounting firm. And so that was kind of my gift. And still, we were able to take stuff and apply it from day one, which says a lot.
Well, I appreciate that, and obviously there's a lot of experience there, and the fact that you're able to pull things day one and find value in those and get them implemented is amazing to hear. And for everyone else that's listening to this right now, keep in mind that it's very much a run your own race style of program here. While Blaine is a bit of a sprinter, you could be a jogger, you could be a power walker, but the key here is let's make sure that we make progress each and every single day, day in and day out with your firm. And I always say this because, similar to what Blaine said, he kind of said, hey, what's going on? Why are you not moving faster? Or what's the deal? And that of course can happen where one member is really accelerating and other people have other priorities. They have life events, they have different things, different priorities in their firm, different ways they're investing their time. Blaine's worked tirelessly for a while now to be able to get talent like Sylvie to help him so that he can spend that amount of time to go through the material. But I bring this up because only compare yourself to who you were yesterday, not where another firm is today. I mean, Blaine's, again, had a client that's been longer than I've been alive that he's had that client.
Well, yeah, I'm old and cold. I mean, you do not, if I could know what I know now and be 35, I mean, oh my God, I mean, I would take over the world. I mean, to me, an accountant that's 30 in their 30s to 35, 40, there are going to be massive changes, but this is it's a printing machine. I mean, I would never have believed that we could generate the revenue, 30 years ago. I mean, our first year, my wife and I, if we billed $30,000, we were going to be fine. And now we better be billing more than $30,000 a week during March,
Exactly. No, fantastic. So I want to accelerate just a little bit here because we've got a few questions left and I can see a bunch of Q&A things already piling up. So let's go ahead and do this. Blaine, I'll ask this to you first, and then Sylvie will get a quick response as well. What do you enjoy most about working with us? We've talked about a couple of different facets, but in terms of what you consider to be the most valuable part of the program at large, what would you feel that is?
I just think it's your unique ability to help us identify what's really important. Every time we have a hot seat, which is once a month for us, I come, first of all, it's like just painful. It's like, oh crap, now I've got to come up with something to talk about. I've only got about 100 things. And so I spend all this time and I get really focused and I get everything together. And then, you let me jabberjaw for a couple minutes and you're like, yeah, well, what I really think is important here, boom. And we usually are going at least a 45 and sometimes 180 degrees off. But you just have a unique ability to focus on what's important. And like you said, I would not, anybody that compares, I was watching something Inay did last night and I was like, oh my God, how did you get this smart this young? And so I would not try to emulate me, probably Sylvia I would, but you just have this amazing ability to take pretty much anybody, whether they're at a $100,000 firm or just trying to start a firm up to $3 million, and find them where they are and help them focus on what they need to really focus on. And that saves, when you look at the time, and the reason you're not able to work on your business is because you've got all this time that you need to spend on clients. Well, if somebody can focus you in the right direction and save you 90% of the time that it would take you to get there on your own, this is a no-brainer. Spend the money and do the work.
I appreciate that answer, Blaine, and I will summarize that as saying, look, sometimes it's hard to get outside of your own subjective experience, and I'm not gonna, trust me, I'm not gonna be right 100% of the time. But what I really like to do is help us to make decisions faster. And what I find a lot of entrepreneurs, especially ones that don't have strong partnerships like Blaine and Sylvie, is that you don't really have that accountability. You don't necessarily have that sounding board to bounce off of. Sometimes you're that sounding board for your clients. And sometimes those clients are eating up a whole lot of time. And we have to understand that time is a very precious resource. And what you choose to focus on is going to determine how quickly you create your dream firm, or even if you do at all, or have a job you wish you could fire yourself from, except it's your own business. So I appreciate that, Blaine. And I agree that I love being able to help hear what all the things are and say, well, we've got to prioritize what the most important item is here, and let's figure out exactly what that is. Sylvie, very quickly, anything you'd add to that?
I think part of the issue that we run into, and we're fortunate enough that we are 3 partners so we can sound off of each other, but like you said, if you're a solo, if you're the only owner, who else are you going to talk to about it? And also because you are dealing with so many other firms, surely other people have experienced these issues, and you're able to help us identify what the real issue is, because we're so busy entrenched in it that while you try to step back and take a good look at it, it's kind of hard to identify. But having that third party that can just go, well, what about this? And it's like, oh yeah, we didn't even see that, to help us get further along quicker.
Exactly. More variety of conversation is always better. I think that's the best way I can summarize it. And I have a lot of variety of various conversations with various accounting professionals that are dealing with similar but very different problems in their own respects. And I think it's a wonderful thing that I can then pull from those and apply them to your situations for what I've seen work well, what I've suggested that maybe didn't go exactly the way we planned, but ultimately we got one step further. And let's just skip that part, and I'll just drop you guys into what we've learned and get you moving even faster. So really appreciate that. Let's get down to brass tacks, and I don't apply pressure on this question. So if you're uncomfortable, please don't feel like it's necessary to answer, but you already indicated that top line growth wasn't necessarily a big priority for you when you came in. It was more about foundational structure, also focusing, simplicity, and even looking at our existing client list and overall profitability. So if you'd be willing to share, how much did you add to your firm and in what time frame? Or if there's another way I could structure that question that better represents ultimately what you've accomplished and achieved with us, I'm more than happy to do so.
Like I said, for us, we were just at a different place. So, I think if we end the year even for 2021, that will be fine. That's probably going to be good. We may even be down a little bit because we had two large sales, and then we had taken on, we took on some work from a friend of ours where they were starting up. This guy had a public company. He's basically starting the same type of company, and he needed to scale very quickly, and he needed an accounting solution to kind of bridge from startup to the first $20 million. And we thought we might do accounting for 2 or 3 locations, and I think we're up to 8 now. So, we're actively waiting. August 1st, that relationship is supposed to end, and we're going to do a little happy dance. Most people would be like, "Oh my God!" But what happened? Part of that was, these were the 2 transactions were. We ended up with a lot more work from them because for transactional work, and these were $25 million sales. But the one we thought was going to go away, and we're going to end up doing the work for probably another 4 to 6 years. So, it may be somewhat shorter than that. So, where we thought we were going to really lose, but we didn't. But I think the short answer is right now, we do need more bodies, and we really just kind of want to get through this period because everybody's we're all rubber bands that are stretched out to 150%. And we want everybody to get back to 90 or 100 and then kind of refigure where we're at, and then really start to focus on, because the last thing I want to do is bring in a new client right now. And, because the other thing I would say is, and this is important, and I wanted to get to this later, but, I think one thing that people don't focus on is how valuable, and for somebody that's very, very new, because in the beginning, it's just like, the ideal client is somebody that can fog a mirror and there's a 50% chance they might pay. But, we grew from probably $500,000 to $1 million just from internal growth, just from existing clients. Now, some of that was referrals to new work, but it was going back to them and showing them, because I still find, and it's just shocking, the clients that don't really understand our complete value proposition. And so, my job is really to go back and sit down with them and say, and work through all the things that we do for other people. I mean, unfortunately, and that's where I think somebody like Ine, she seems to be so proactive in what she's doing, and so much of ours is reactive. I mean, we do a lot, we've done a ton of advisory work forever. I mean, that's just, if Blaine's talking, I'm getting paid, but it's really reactive. And that's the part, part of what I really am embracing about what Dream Firms offers and some of these other programs we're in is how to get this cookie cutter so we can bring in these $25,000, $30,000, $40,000 a year, clients, and replace some of these $100,000 a year clients that just stress the hell out of my people.
I'll summarize that response as a lot of people come to us, yes, looking to grow and acquire dream clients. And of course, we do that in spades, but there's preparation for growth and then there's actually growing. And when you've got a firm with as large as Blaine and Sylvie has, when you're in the preparation for growth phase and you're analyzing your client base and you're making sure that your team is not overstretched, that can take some time to make sure that we get the proper systems and processes in place, the proper assets, so that when dream client acquisition gets flipped on, we're not necessarily worried about the clients that we do have, re-explaining our value proposition. There's too many things that I don't want us looking over our shoulder when we need to be looking forward almost exclusively. And I'm glad to know that we've made tremendous progress on those elements, and we're going to continue to do so. And once we get into the acquisition side, it's going to be it's going to be a lot of fun. I'll just put it like that. Cool. So Sylvia, I'll bring this one over to you. What would you say to someone considering our services right now?
Knowing what I know today, I'd probably say you need to move on it today and not wait. I mean, originally, like Blaine was saying, it was November, we're heading into tax season, already kind of overloaded. We need to push this off to later. But having, especially with Blaine having the bandwidth to take it on, why wait? It's stop putting it off. You need to make it a priority. I think the one thing that a lot of firm owners do is you're so busy producing to get the work out the door that you don't take the time to stop and truly intentionally look at what is going on. What should you be focusing on to make the most of it? And that is one of the greatest values you can likely add to your firm.
Blaine, anything else to add to that?
I just think you're going to get out of it what you put in, and this can be your magic bullet to the extent you do the work.
Perfectly said. Every relationship is a two-way street, and you guys show up every week, week in, week out, every month. Again, and that's you dive into the material, you go back through it, you do the exercises, and all of that is bearing fruit and will continue to bear fruit for you guys. I really appreciate the relationship we have. Why do you consider this one of the best investments you've made in your business, Blaine, if you would?
I think I've explained that. I mean, I don't have a lot more to offer than what I've already said.
Completely fair. What has surprised you the most when it came to growing your practice?
To me, it's identifying and marketing to your ideal client. I mean, I've said this over and over and over, and it almost sounds cliche, but like I said before in the beginning, for us, it was like any client that could fog a mirror, and we thought there was a chance we might get paid. And it's certainly, I recognize, and I would say that it's much easier for me to say that, it's like, oh yeah, well go back to Blaine 30 years ago and let's have that conversation. But, today it's much easier because of where we are, because like I said earlier, I really believe we offer exceptional value to any small business that walks through the door. But, bad referrals or bad clients refer bad clients. And so, and one of the other challenges, because from the beginning, I've always said I have a face for radio, and our client base has been spread all over. Our biggest 1040 still is in New York City. And we've got clients in South Africa, in Dallas, all over the United States. So until things really got on the internet, it was rare for those clients to refer clients to us. But today that's completely different. We had a client here locally refer us to a group on the other side of the state, and so I just think that the sooner the clearer you figure out, or the sooner you figure out what you love working on, and say no to everything else, the sooner you're going to begin creating an exceptional firm. Because I still to this day, we don't do reviews. We really don't want to. I don't think we do, but maybe 1 or 2 compilations. And our goal is to do none. And really is to create strategic relationships with other firms, and they're still, they want a client. We've got a buddy of ours that he wants clients that are still on paper. I would rather blow my brains out. But that's you, go ahead. But just, it's hard to say no, but the sooner you do it, the better off you're going to be.
Sylvia, anything you'd add to that?
I think we have found through trial and error over the years, when you don't say no, when your gut is telling you should, you will regret it later, and it's just going to stress not only you out, but your staff out.
Yeah.
So, you got to think about it before.
Bad clients are like tar babies. You're just like, get off of my, when clients come in, and they're like, this happens. I say, one of my primary jobs is to make sure you don't get through the front door if you're not the right client. And I've had people say to me, it's like, does this sales method really work for you? And I go, surprisingly, it does.
There's so many good things from that response to highlight, but I'll speak to 2 of them. Bad clients equals bad referrals. And so that is a vicious cycle that is difficult to escape. But as soon as you learn the power of the word no, not only does it stabilize your existing client base, it even gives you more power in your sales presentation, which is the second thing that I'd like to highlight from what Blaine said here, is that, look, when you have that mentality, that leadership, that is a recognition that you're going somewhere. And if you're not aligned with where we're going, if you're not on the same page as we are, we're not going to be a good fit. And that is an incredibly empowering mindset, because as opposed to feeling like you're selling at this point, like Blaine said, well, does this sales thing work? It's like, I'm not here to really sell you anything. I'm here to qualify you to see if you meet our mold. And that is a massive shift, because a lot of people are like, oh, I hate sales. I don't like selling. I'm an accountant. I'm kind of introverted. And I go, look, that's not what this is about. This is about making sure they're a good fit for you and your organization. You're not trying to sell someone into buying a car that they don't want to buy. Like, this isn't what we're doing. We're here to pre-vet and make sure that, again, we're on the same page. And I don't think it's a surprise that Blaine and Sylvia have had the success that they've had with their firm and the longevity of their clients, and being able to have people even refer them $20 million clients, let alone the fact they turn them down. But it's because they know what they're looking for, and that gives them a tremendous amount of power in the sales conversation. Awesome. And then that brings us to Q&A overall. So if you guys have additional questions, please feel free to drop them into either the Facebook comment section or into the Zoom chat, and we will make sure that we get to them as a part of today's interview. So Mary says, I have a partner too. This was very interesting. Mary, that's awesome. Just as you know, or in case anyone's curious, if you do decide to join the Create Your Dream Firm program, we make sure that all members of management participate, okay? So that you're not on an island, everyone has to be on the same page so that ultimately we can make progress together. Kyle has a question. Where are you located? What is the split for remote/local clients? Maybe spurred from the comment about South Africa/New York. Blaine, if you want to tackle that.
We're in a city called Lutz. It's really just the north side of Tampa, Florida. I mean, Sylvie, do you have any sense? I mean, we've never been the local bookkeeping practice where people drive up and drop their stuff off. I mean, honestly, we could lock our door and go a week and nobody would knock. It's always been remote, and because everything's paperless, it's not a problem. I mean, I don't know, maybe 25% are remote. Maybe that may be too high.
Yeah, probably about that much. That was the nice thing too. Unfortunately, when COVID hit, we all went home. Our clients didn't know we went home.
Right.
Because they're used to dealing with us either Zoom, phone, whatnot. So we don't have really walk-in traffic very much. So it really made that, nice and easy. We were able to keep going without skipping a beat.
Fantastic, fantastic. And look, I think again, it's even if the clients move or if you move, doesn't impact the practice.
That was the thing I wanted to mention is many of these clients, I mean, we have a large dental lab company out in Dallas. I worked on this guy's, I mean, the client now, I mean, we've been friends for 30 years, but I did work for a group of companies that he worked for when I worked at Laventhal, and that relationship, so I've known him probably since 84 or no, it's 86. And so, so that is true. When people move, they virtually never terminate us.
Absolutely. I've got, it looks like more of a comment from Julia. Congrats on servicing clients for 30 plus years, just starting my firm, hoping to have the same longevity. I'm sure you will. Philip, I struggle with knowing where to start when it comes to replacing problem clients by better ones. Seems like your program is what I need. How do I learn more? Philip, there will be a link floating around here, either in the chat. I'm sure Maureen's going to drop something down below. But ultimately, just book that call. We'll make sure that you understand exactly what's included in the program. And if you want to check out dreamfirms.com, there's some additional information there that can help you with, again, just making sure you know what's going on with the program. Kanisha said, he said $30,000 a week, 3 question marks. I think you mentioned that during March as opposed to $30,000 a year. So there's some seasonality to that response. But Blaine, again, those are the weeks that you're striving for. Am I right?
Actually, no, our fees, so I'm way off. It's probably more like $50,000 a week during March. We're north of 32,000 a week, every week.
Okay. That's all you need to say. Jen, I need that focus. How do I work with you, Tyler? Jen, again, there will be a link. Just check that out. We've got an amazing program, 8 weeks one-on-one directly with me. You've got plenty of things that allow you to get direct access to me and my expertise. I like to say it's essentially unlimited. You want to work with me. I want to work with you. Again, just make sure that you take a look at that link and get a call booked out. CJ asks, hire your workers, employees, or independent contractors? It looks like you may have answered this in the chat already, though, Blaine. I think you primarily have employees. Is that correct?
Yes.
Yeah.
Out of curiosity, what made you decide to have that decision? I know that there's kind of this, should we have more contractors? What made you say, no, we're going to have primarily employees?
I mean, both Sylvie and I are reticent to jump into the offshore process because maybe we find a great employee, but I don't know how we're going to make them partners in 10 years. And we really have, for years. I mean, I was involved in hiring at other firms, large firms, and we just never. A local firm is like, they're like reticent to bring in employees and then try to train them. And several years ago, probably 6-7 years ago, we finally just said we want to develop an internship program and a training program for 5 or 6 years So we can take somebody from an intern during tax season to a client manager in roughly 6 years. And that's our program. And so, the downside is when you get a key employee and you build them and you train them for 2 or 3 years and they leave, it's extremely painful. But we've been lucky to keep, plugging people into the system. And unfortunately, with the dearth of, qualified people out there, we do virtually no 1040s. I mean, we're down to just the owners and a handful of others. So really hiring somebody from H&R Block doesn't give us anything. So we're having to train these people from the get-go. And that's worked for us so far, but we still need people. But and this idea of, I mean, we may have to move this way, and you and I have talked about this, more and more. But so far, we really want to build the community in the United States, and preferably in our local market if possible. But that may have to change.
And I'll summarize that response as it's a cultural decision and it's a cultural fit, is that we want people that are looking towards the long term here. The fact that we're even mentioning the term partner, right, in a 10-year period, I think is a tremendous accolade for your firm, but it's also a way to attract really high quality talent into your building. And you just can't necessarily get that with contractors. Of course, you can convert them to full-time team members and employees. But I think, again, that's a decision that you have to understand is going to impact the type of talent that you are capable of bringing into your firm. And when you're talking about high-level advisory services, meaningful long-term relationships like Blaine is, that I don't think it's necessarily a coincidence that you guys have struggled with the idea of outsourcing, with the emphasis you put on the strength of the relationships of your clients and the level of service you provide. So that's fantastic to hear. Bill asks, I'm going to be off for the next 10 days. Should I book my call now or when I'm ready to start? Bill, I'd say book your call now. We can make sure you get the start date of your choice. Just book the call. We'll talk to you soon. We've got 1 minute left. Anna says, thank you, and Blaine and Sylvie, great insights. Our pleasure, Anna. Glad you tuned in and checked it out. Jen, awesome, booking my call now. Fantastic, Jen. And Katrina says, I picked a niche 2 years ago, but I have a hard time getting clients in that niche. What would you recommend? Katrina, picking a niche and actively participating and being seen inside of that niche are two totally different things. And so I would take a look at what is the niche itself. And on top of that, what is it that you are actively deploying in terms of systems and tactics that are getting people to see you? And is there a disconnect between those individuals and your message? Is there a disconnect on the offer? There's a few things in that process that I'd like to see and analyze before I say, hey, you know what, let's throw the baby out with the bathwater. That's a bad niche. I don't have enough information to realistically say anything about that. Michael says, book my call. Let's do this. And we are officially out of time. I just want to say a huge thank you to Blaine and Sylvie. And just very quickly, Sylvie, any parting shots?
Just make the most of the program and you'll see the results.
Beautiful. Blaine, anything you'd say as just a final word here?
Yep, we didn't talk about it, but I just want to emphasize culture is a huge thing for us, and we spend a fair amount of time working on it. And I can't emphasize how important that is to creating, cohesiveness with your employees, and the clients see that from the outside.
Mm-hmm.
I couldn't say it better myself. There's a why people should work with you, and there's a why people should work for you. And if you don't have both of those answers dialed in, you're going to struggle not only with client acquisition, but talent acquisition as well. And needless to say, Blaine doesn't struggle with either of those because he gives both of those questions a lot of thought and puts those thoughts into action. So thank you so much to both of our Dream Firm leaders. It's been a pleasure. For those of you checking this out, please understand that we'd love to see if you are a good fit for us, just like Blaine has an understanding of who's a good fit for him and his firm. And to do that, check out the link that's going to be somewhere floating around here, because remember that only you can create your dream firm like Blaine and Sylvie, but we help you every single step of the way. We'll see you next time. Have a wonderful, wonderful rest of your day, everyone. Talk to you soon.
Thank you, Tyler.
Thank you, guys.